The boy in the fields. The evening sun was sinking low, casting a golden glow across the endless fields of wheat. The wind moved softly through the tall stalks, making them sway like waves in a quiet ocean. Birds were returning to their nests, their wings cutting across the orange sky. Rahul was working alone, his hands rough from days of labor, his shirt damp with sweat. His skin was sun-kissed from long hours under the open sky, and his dark hair was damp, sticking to his forehead. Every movement he made was steady and calm, as if he had done this his whole life. To most people in the village, Rahul was just a poor farmer. He worked hard, spoke little, and never showed off. But to Anya, he was different. She had noticed him for months, how he helped the elderly carry heavy water pots, how he stopped to feed stray dogs, how he smiled even when the sun burned hot. Above him, Anya's world was completely different. She was the daughter of a wealthy businessman who owned half the land in the district. Her family lived in a mansion with marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and servants to serve food on silver plates. She had never needed to work a day in her life, but wealth had never impressed her as much as kindness did, and Rahul was full of it. They met for the first time on a windy afternoon. Anya had gone to the fields to sketch in her notebook, far away from the noise of her house. The wind had suddenly picked up, pulling her scarf from her shoulders. It flew across the field, like a bird, landing near Rahul's feet. He picked it up gently, dusted the soil from it, and handed it to her. His hands were calloused, but his touch was careful. "Your scarf," he said softly. His voice was deep, but shy. "Thank you," she replied, smiling. For a moment their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. From that day, Anya found herself visiting the fields more often. At first, she told herself it was to sketch the scenery, to capture the sunset over the wheat. But deep down, she knew it was because of him. They began to talk, about little things at first, the weather, the birds, the harvest, then slowly about dreams and life. Rahul spoke of wanting to plant more than wheat one day, to see the fields filled with sunflowers and fruit trees. Anya shared her dream of writing stories that touched people's hearts. Sometimes they would sit under the old banyan tree near the pond. Rahul would bring her wildflowers, tied together with a piece of straw. She would bring him sweets from her home, hidden in a cloth so her parents wouldn't see. They laughed together easily, like they had known each other forever. But in the back of her mind, Anya knew her parents would never approve. In her father's eyes, love was a transaction. It had to match status, wealth, and family name. A farmer's son would never be worthy. One evening, the air smelled of wet soil after a light rain. Rahul was fixing the wooden fence by the field when Anya walked up to him. "My father will never understand," she said quietly, her voice trembling. Rahul looked at her for a long moment, then lowered his eyes. "I know," he replied. "People like me are not welcome in houses like yours." "That's not true," she said quickly, taking a step closer. "You are welcome in my heart." His lips curved into a small smile, but his eyes held worry. "He could take everything from you. Your comfort, your home, even your family." Anya shook her head. "Let them take it. They cannot take you away from me." But deep inside, both of them knew the truth. The world they lived in was not kind to love like theirs. That night, as she lay in her bed, Anya thought about the way Rahul's hands had brushed hers earlier, the warmth of it lingering in her skin. She thought about his laugh, low and honest, and how his eyes crinkled when he smiled. She did not care about his worn-out clothes or the fact that his house was small. She loved the way he treated people, the way he cared for the land, the way he looked at her like she was the only person in the world. And Rahul, though he did not say it, felt the same. Every time he saw her walking toward the fields, dressed, in her simple white scarf and holding her sketchbook, It was like the world grew brighter. He had nothing to give her but his love. But it was a love deeper than the roots of the oldest tree in the village. The golden field stood between them, his world and hers. But for now, under the watch of the setting sun, it felt like those worlds had merged into one. Rahul knew the storm would come one day. Her family would find out, and the peace they shared would shatter. But until then, he would treasure every smile, every stolen conversation, every moment she chose to be by his side. And Anya? She already knew. No matter what happened, she would fight for the boy in the fields. The storm at home. The morning after her last meeting with Rahul, Anya woke up to the smell of jasmine flowers from the garden drifting through her open window. The sun was bright, but her heart felt heavy. She kept replaying Rahul's words in her head. "Your father will never understand." She dressed quietly, trying to keep her footsteps soft as she walked downstairs. The dining room was set like always. White tablecloth, silver cutlery, steaming tea, and her father sitting at the head of the table reading the newspaper. Her mother, dressed in a silk sari, poured herself tea without looking at Anya. For a moment, everything seemed normal. But then, her father folded the newspaper, placed it on the table, and said in a voice that felt too calm to be safe, "Who is this farmer boy?" Anya froze. Her teacup trembled in her hand. "Baba, how—" "We know everything," her mother interrupted coldly, her eyes sharp. "Do you think we wouldn't hear? People talk, Anya. They say you've been meeting a poor boy in the fields. Is that true?" Anya's heart pounded. She could lie. She could say it was nothing. But she thought of Rahul, of his honesty, and she couldn't betray that. She lifted her chin and said, "Yes, it's true." The silence that followed was like the moment before a storm breaks. Her father's voice rose, each word striking like a whip. "Have you lost your mind? You are my daughter. You have a future planned, a good marriage, respect in society, and you waste your time with a man who digs in the dirt for a living?" "Baba," she said, trying to keep her voice steady, "he is kind. He is honest, and he works harder than anyone I know. Isn't that what matters?" "Love does not feed you," her father snapped. "Kindness does not build a home. Anya, listen to me. Wealth marries wealth. That's how the world works." Her mother leaned forward, her bangles clinking softly. "We forbid you to see him again. If I find out you disobeyed us—" Her voice trailed off. But the warning was clear. Anya's throat felt tight, but she managed to say, "You can stop me from seeing him, but you cannot stop me from loving him." Her father slammed his hand on the table so hard the teacups rattled. "Enough! This is the last time we will speak of him in this house." She left the table, her vision blurry with tears. Upstairs, she closed her bedroom door and leaned against it, shaking. She didn't know whether to scream, cry, or run away. That night, she sat by her window, staring out at the moonlit fields. Somewhere out there, Rahul was probably finishing his work, washing the dirt from his hands, maybe sitting under the banyan tree where they had shared their first secret. She wanted to run to him, but her parents had already ordered the servants to keep an eye on her. The next morning, she waited until her parents left for the city. She slipped out quietly, wrapping her scarf tightly around her head so no one would notice her. When she reached the fields, she saw Rahul working near the fence, mending a broken post. He looked up when he saw her, surprise in his eyes. "Anya, what are you doing here? I thought—" "They know," she said, her voice breaking. "They told me never to see you again." Rahul's jaw tightened. He set down his tools and walked closer. "They're right about one thing. You will suffer if you choose me. I don't have anything to give you, no wealth, no security. You give me everything that matters, she said, tears filling her eyes. You give me respect. You give me love. Isn't that worth more than gold? He took her hands gently, his rough palms warm against her skin. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The wind moved softly through the wheat, carrying the faint scent of the earth after last night's rain. Finally, Rahul said, I don't want to be the reason you are torn away from your family. You're not the reason, she whispered. They are, because they can't see what I see in you. He looked away, his gaze falling on the distant hills. There was a weight in his eyes, something he wasn't saying. She didn't know that. Rahul carried a secret, one that could change everything. But for now, he kept it locked away, hidden like a seed waiting for the right season to grow. They both knew the days ahead would be harder than anything they had faced. But as they stood, together in the golden light of morning, it felt for a brief moment that love might be enough to carry them through. The hidden past. The air was heavy that evening, filled with the scent of jasmine from the nearby hedges and the earthy dampness of the fields after the day's watering. Rahul sat by the old pond, his reflection trembling in the ripples. The sun had dipped low, leaving streaks of purple and red across the sky. He held a smooth pebble in his palm, turning it over slowly, lost in thought. He had spent years keeping his past locked away, like an old trunk hidden in a dusty attic, untouched, unspoken, forgotten by everyone except him. But now, with Anya's parents standing like a wall between them, he wondered if it was time to open that trunk, because Rahul was not just a poor farmer. Once he had been the son of a man everyone respected, Arvind Singh, a landowner whose name carried weight across the district. Their home had been a sprawling estate with white pillars, acres of mango orchards, and servants who addressed him as young master. But wealth has a way of attracting both envy and betrayal. When Rahul was 17, his father died suddenly in a road accident. In the chaos that followed, a trusted uncle stepped forward, promising to handle the family's properties until Rahul was old enough. What Rahul didn't know was that this uncle had already been planning to take everything. Within a year, the estate was gone, the orchard sold, the servants dismissed. Rahul and his mother were left with nothing. She fell sick soon after, her health broken by grief and poverty. By the time Rahul turned 20, she was gone too, leaving him alone in the world, standing on the ashes of what once was. He could have left the village and gone to the city to start again. But something inside him refused to run. Instead, he took work wherever he could, hauling water, tending fields, planting seeds for other landowners. He never told anyone who he used to be. If people thought he was just another poor farmer, so be it. It was easier that way, until Anya came into his life. That night, he heard footsteps crunching the dry leaves behind him. He didn't turn. He already knew it was her. You disappeared after this morning, Anya said softly, sitting beside him. Her scarf slipped from her hair, the evening breeze playing with its edges. I had work, he replied, eyes fixed on the pond. You've been quiet for days, she pressed gently. What's wrong? Rahul's fingers tightened around the pebble. He wanted to tell her everything, that the man she loved was not who she thought he was, that his hands, which now turned the soil, had once signed papers worth millions. But the words stayed trapped in his throat. Instead, he said, Anya, if things get worse with your family, you should step away from me. She turned to face him, hurt flashing in her eyes. Is that what you want? For me to leave? He shook his head. It's what I think is best for you. I'll decide what's best for me, she said firmly. Her hand reached for his, gripping it tightly. Rahul, my parents don't know you. They only see what you are now, not who you are inside. But I see it. I see your heart." Her words felt like both a balm and a wound. She loved him for the man she thought he was, not knowing that his story was much larger than the simple life he lived now. Days passed, but the pressure around them only grew. Her parents began sending her proposals from wealthy families, sons of businessmen, politicians, men with expensive suits and foreign degrees. Every time she refused, the tension in the house thickened. Meanwhile, Rahul noticed strangers watching him in the market, whispering behind his back. News traveled fast in villages. Some people said he was trying to trap the rich man's daughter. Others said Anya was foolish for lowering herself. One afternoon, as Rahul carried sacks of grain to a storage shed, he heard two men talking by the roadside. "They say that farmer boy isn't just a farmer," one of them murmured. "Some old story about his family once being rich." Rahul kept walking, his jaw tight. He had lived so long in the shadows of his own past that hearing it on someone else's tongue felt like a violation. That evening, he decided something. If Anya was willing to fight for him, then maybe he owed her the truth. Not for her parents' sake, not to prove himself to anyone else, but because she deserved to know the man she loved in full, not in pieces. The moon was bright that night, its reflection silvering the pond's surface. Rahul waited under the banyan tree where they had first shared secrets. When Anya arrived, she was breathless, her eyes searching his. "You said you needed to talk," she said. Rahul took a deep breath. His voice was low but steady. "Anya, the life you see me living now, it's not the life I was born into." And, with that, the first stone of the wall between them began to crack. The breaking point. The morning after Rahul's confession, the village felt strangely quieter to Anya. The usual chatter of neighbors, the clinking of milk cans, the creak of bullock carts, all seemed muffled. She had hardly slept, her mind replaying every word he had told her the night before. The boy she loved was not just a poor farmer. He was the son of a man who once owned half the lands in the district, a man respected by all. But that life had been stolen from him through greed and betrayal. Rahul had worked in silence, never asking for pity, never telling anyone. It made her love him more. But it also made her angry. Angry at the injustice he had suffered, angry at her parents for judging a man by his present without knowing his past. She went to the fields early that day, determined to tell Rahul she was ready, to stand by him no matter what. But when she arrived, she found him talking to two men she recognized, close friends of her father. They stood stiff, their voices sharp. "Stay away from her," one of them warned. "You think you can charm your way into that family? You have no place there." Rahul's jaw tightened, but his voice was calm. "I'm not after her wealth. I care for her, and that's all." The man laughed bitterly. "Care won't save you when her father decides he's had enough of your little fantasy." Anya stepped forward, her voice clear. "This is not a fantasy. This is my choice." Both men turned, startled. One muttered something under his breath and left, the other following. Rahul looked at her, worry in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come. They'll tell your father." "Let them," she said firmly. "I'm tired of hiding." That evening, the storm finally broke. Her father was waiting for her in the living room, his face red with rage. Her mother sat beside him, her lips pressed into a thin line. "So," her father began, "you went to the fields again. You spoke to that boy in front of my friends. Do you have any idea how humiliated I felt when they told me?" "Humiliated?" Anya's voice shook, not from fear but from fury. "You feel humiliated because I spoke to a man who works with his hands? A man more honest than half the people you dine with?" Her mother's eyes flashed. "Watch your tone." But Anya didn't stop. "Do you know who he is? Do you even care?" "Rahul's father was Arvind Singh, the man you respected once. He lost everything because of betrayal, not because he was lazy or worthless. He works now because he refuses to beg, because he has dignity. Her father's face darkened. Even if he was once rich, he is nothing now. You want to tie your life to a man who can barely feed himself? Money comes and goes, Anya said quietly. But love like this doesn't come twice in a lifetime. Her father stood, his voice thunderous. If you walk out of this house to be with him, don't bother coming back. The room went silent. The ticking of the wall clock seemed louder than anything else. Anya looked at her father, her heart breaking. She wanted to believe there was still kindness in him, that he might see the man Rahul truly was, but his eyes were cold, his pride unbending. She turned and walked upstairs without another word, her mother's disapproving gaze following her. Later that night, she stood by her window, staring at the distant fields under the silver moonlight. She knew Rahul would be there somewhere, working late or resting under the banyan tree. She wanted to run to him, to tell him everything that had happened, but she also knew that the battle ahead would be the hardest they had faced. Her father's pride was a wall taller than anything they could climb together, unless something happened to break it. And that something was closer than either of them realized, because the very man her father dismissed as a poor nobody was about to have his true identity revealed to the whole village in a way no one would forget. The truth comes out. 3 days passed in silence between Anya and Rahul, not because they didn't want to see each other, but because the air in the village had turned sharp with whispers. Her father's friends had spread the word that the rich man's daughter had lost her senses, and that the farmer boy was trying to climb above his station. Rahul stayed away, not wanting to bring more trouble to her door, but that didn't mean he had stopped thinking about her. Every evening, he found himself standing at the edge of the fields, looking toward her house, wondering if she was looking back. The turning point came on a hot afternoon, when the village square filled with people. A convoy of black SUVs rolled in, their engines humming, their polished surfaces reflecting the blazing sun. No one in the village had seen cars like these in years. From the first SUV stepped out a man in a tailored suit, his presence commanding silence. He was in his late 50s with salt and pepper hair and a sharp gaze. People began to murmur. He was Mr. Rajesh Malhotra, one of the biggest industrialists in the state. Behind him came his secretary, carrying a thick folder. The villagers gathered closer, curious. "Where can I find Rahul Singh?" Mr. Malhotra asked in a deep, authoritative voice. Everyone looked around. A few pointed toward the fields. Moments later, Rahul appeared, wiping sweat from his brow, his shirt stained from work. He walked forward slowly, confused by the crowd's stares. "Rahul Singh," Malhotra said with a faint smile. "I've been looking for you for months." Rahul frowned. "Do I know you?" "No," the man said, "but I knew your father. We were business partners once before. Everything happened." He glanced around at the crowd, his voice firm. "I came here today because I've been tracking the fraud that destroyed your family's wealth. And I have proof of who did it." Gasps rippled through the villagers. Malhotra handed the folder to Rahul. Inside were documents, bank transfers, forged signatures, property deeds. And at the center of it all was the name of Rahul's uncle. Rahul's hands trembled. "You're saying, my father's death, the loss of everything, it was all because of him?" "Yes," Malhotra said, "and I am here to make things right. The court has ruled in your favor. Every acre of your father's land, every business share, every asset, it's all legally yours again." The crowd erupted in shock. People who had once pitied Rahul now stared at him in awe. A few men stepped back, ashamed of the way they had spoken about him. Word traveled faster than fire in dry grass. By evening, Anya's father had heard everything. He called for his car immediately and drove to the square, where Rahul was still surrounded by people congratulating him. The moment their eyes met, the air seemed to thicken. Anya's father stepped forward. "Rahul, I heard the news. I didn't know—" "You didn't care to know," Rahul said quietly, but his voice carried weight. "All you saw was a man in worn clothes and calloused hands. That was enough for you to decide my worth." The older man's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. His gaze dropped for a moment before he said, "I was wrong." Anya, who had arrived breathless behind her father, looked between them, her heart pounding. She wanted to run to Rahul, but she stayed still, afraid the fragile moment would break. Rahul turned to the crowd. "Wealth comes and goes. I've lived with it and without it. But dignity. Dignity is something you carry, no matter what the world calls you. Don't measure a man by the dirt on his hands, but by the honesty in his work." The crowd nodded, murmuring in agreement. Anya's father looked at his daughter then, his voice lower. "If you still want to be with him, you have my blessing." For a second, Anya thought she had misheard. But when Rahul's eyes met hers, warm, steady, and full of everything they had fought for, she knew it was real. That night, the village buzzed with the story. Some called it fate, others called it justice. But for Anya and Rahul, it was neither. It was simply the truth finally stepping into the light. And as they stood together under the banyan tree where it had all begun, Anya whispered, "I told you. Love like this doesn't come twice." Rahul smiled, pulling her scarf gently around her shoulders. "And now we have the rest of our lives to prove it." A new dawn. The sun rose slowly over the fields, spilling warm light across the land. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh earth and blooming marigolds. For the first time in years, Rahul woke not with the weight of survival pressing on his chest, but with the quiet knowledge that the life ahead was his to shape. He stood on the veranda of the old Singh estate, a place that had once been stolen from him and was now restored to its former glory. White pillars gleamed in the morning light. The mango orchards rustled softly, and in the distance, the wheat fields danced like waves in a golden sea. Behind him, footsteps approached. Anya appeared, her hair loose over her shoulders, her white scarf fluttering in the soft breeze. She was holding 2 cups of chai, the steam curling into the morning air. "You're up early," she said, handing him a cup. "I used to wake before sunrise every day to work in the fields," Rahul replied, with a smile. "It's a habit I don't want to lose, even now." Anya took a sip of her tea, her eyes following his gaze to the horizon. "It's beautiful here," she murmured. "I can't believe this was yours all along. It was never just—" "Mine," Rahul said softly. "It was my father's dream. He wanted this land to feed people, to give work to families, to be more than just wealth. I lost it once, but now I can make it what he dreamed it would be." Over the weeks that followed, Rahul kept that promise. The estate became alive again, not as a symbol of power, but as a place of community. He reopened the mango orchards, started a school for the village children, and built wells so no one had to walk miles for water. People who once looked at him with pity now looked at him with respect. But Rahul never forgot those years when his hands were blistered from labor and his stomach empty from skipped meals. He carried those memories like seeds in his pocket, reminders of where he had come from. Anya stood by his side through it all. She left behind the marble floors and chandeliers of her parents' home, choosing instead the open skies and the scent of earth after rain. At first, her parents visited rarely, but over time the walls of pride began to crumble. Her father, once rigid with judgment, began helping with estate projects. Her mother, who had refused to see Rahul for what he was, now smiled when he served her tea in the orchard. One evening, months after the day everything changed, Rahul and Ayanya stood together under the banyan tree, the same place where their love had quietly begun, hidden from the world. The fireflies glowed between the roots, the pond shimmered under the moonlight, and the air was filled with the faint sound of crickets. "Do you remember," Anya said with a soft laugh, "how scared you were to even hold my hand here?" Rahul chuckled. "I wasn't scared. I was careful. You were the rich man's daughter. I was the boy with nothing. Holding your hand felt like touching, something too precious to keep." "And now?" she asked, tilting her head. He took her hand in his, firm and steady. "Now I know you were never mine to keep. You chose to stay, and that choice means more than anything I own." As the night deepened, a gentle breeze moved through the fields, carrying the scent of jasmine. The moonlight silvered Anya's hair, and Rahul looked at her as if she were still the girl in the white scarf standing at the edge of the fields years ago. Life had not been kind to them at first. It had tested them, stripped them, and nearly broken them. But in the end, it had given them something stronger than wealth or status. It had given them each other. And as they stood there, the village sleeping around them, the land stretching, out under the endless sky, it felt like the beginning of a new dawn. For Rahul, it was the dawn of a life where he could honor his father's dream. For Anya, it was the dawn of a love that had survived every storm. And for both of them, it was proof that sometimes the truest riches are found in the heart.